He's out of his mind.
I can't believe he said that.
This is Ahead for Sports with Kevin Heath.
Hello, welcome again to another episode of Ahead for Sports by Kevin Heath, and I am your host, Kevin Heath. And I just want to welcome you back after a long hiatus. I have been recently making a career change. So I was just kind of get into a little bit about my personal life, which I'm sure a lot of you really want to hear about, but I'll go ahead and dive into it a little bit anyway. Just to, everybody likes to hear excuses, so I recently went into a career change. I was working for the Department of Veteran Affairs for 14 years up until last year, and I had to medically retire due to a health condition of mine. I had some residuals from what they call a spinal stroke from 8 years ago, and so I had to go and have those issues addressed. And so because I decided not to go back into the public sector and work for the government, I decided to start a different career. I recently went and obtained my life and health insurance license for the state of Oklahoma, and started going to work for Globe Life Liberty National, doing business-to-business sales, and turned out that wasn't such a great choice for me, and decided that I needed to find a different company to go work for. So, but I've been away because I was learning that job, but at the same time I realized that it wasn't a good fit, so I had to start a new job search. And so I eventually found something different, and starting to make a transition over to Farmers Insurance, working for a local agent, and I'll be working towards getting my property and casualty license as well, so I can start working for them. And so in the next couple of weeks I'll be starting at this agency. So I've had to make that career change. And then on top of that, I'm also married, and been married happily for the last 13 years. And my wife and I have a adopted child who has moderate severe autism, and recently he's been suffering from these severe headaches, and we've had to go and had those addressed, because we were deeply concerned, because he was acting out and he couldn't really tell us what was going on, because he's not nonverbal, but he has a problem expressing himself. He can't always tell us exactly what's going on. He tries his best, but he just can't at times. So we had to go through a bunch of different hoops, and we finally were able to get MRI and determine that it's just your garden variety migraines. So if you can believe, 11-year-old can have migraines, but that's what they determined, that he's having migraines. So that's what we're dealing with, an autistic child with migraines, and it's been kind of harrowing, but we've been dealing with that as well. So, but that's what's been going on the last several weeks, so that's why I've been away. And but But I'm back. I'm ready to get back out and do these videos. The plan is to try to do this as regularly as possible. Probably do it at least 3 times a week. I'd like to try to do it 4 or more times. It's just going to depend on what the topics are and what's going on. It's just going to just depend on my schedule and what's happening. But I'm going to try at least do a minimum of 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday type of thing. Do a recap of the college games and then do some other stuff throughout the week. Because now we got the NBA season starting up. Oklahoma City Thunder had their debut game last night. We also had, we got the World Series. We have, obviously, we have the college football season still going on. We got the NFL. So definitely got a lot of stuff going on. And I mean, there's just a lot of different crazy things going on in just the world of sports, period. So, so I thought to start with this episode that we would do a college football focused episode, just to kind of just kind of keep it focused, and then on one topic or just one area, and then the next episode I'll do NFL for the next one, and then we'll do the next episode. We'll just kind of just play it by ear, and that way we can kind of just lump all the stories in as best we can, and then we'll just go from there and just see what happens. So I figured we'll start by doing a recap of the football season, some of the highlights, and then we'll just go from there. Okay, so the first thing I thought we'd talk about is we talk about the big game. Everyone was talking about Alabama, Florida State. That was like the big game that started the season. Florida State upsets Alabama, and everybody starts losing their mind because everyone's like, oh, Florida State loses. Florida State upsets Alabama. Alabama loses. Everyone loses their mind because Kalen DeBoer is obviously not cut out to coach Alabama. They made a horrible decision replacing him for Nick Saban, and now everyone's doing the hot seat watch, and now we're halfway through the season, and they're the number 4 ranked team in the country, and they look like they're going to be a lock for the playoffs. So it's crazy how pundits kind of just go crazy after just one game, going, this is the end of the world. I never ascribed to that. You kind of have to play it over the course of an entire season. You can't just make a decision off of just one game. I know some of them were playing based off of some of the stuff that happened last year, losing to Oklahoma and then Vanderbilt. But I mean, still, you can't base it off of some bad losses. Number one, it's a different world now that Nick Saban left. Nick Saban left because of NIL and the transfer window. He knew that he wasn't going to keep the same level of dominance that he had kept in previous seasons because of this new world. So you can't base it off of that anymore. You just can't do it. So now you got Florida State. Florida State looks like that they're resurrected from their 2-10 season from the previous year. They look like they're going to be a playoff team. They start off 3-0. They look great. And then suddenly they get to conference play, and they're now 0-4 in conference play. They're 3-4. Mike Norvell looks like he's on the hot seat unless he manages to turn things around. The only thing that's probably saving him is his buyout, because Florida State, even though they're one of the top football programs in the country, they're a little bit tight with with at least monetarily with resources. So they're not going to be so quick to pull the trigger on firing a coach with such a high buyout. So if Norvell manages to get this team to 6-6 and into a bowl game, there's probably a good chance that he's probably going to end up having another season, just because of their situation, at least how they run things administratively there. It's just the way they do things. It's just a different kind of program they run for a blue blood. Then we have Clemson. Clemson, we thought was going to be a national championship contender this year. Then they opened the season with a loss to LSU. We just thought that they just ran into a very good defense by LSU, but it turns out that again that team is mirage. I believe they're 3-4. They're not doing really great in the ACC, and I mean Dabo is. I think his job is safe just because of who he is. I mean, winning 2 national championships. I think he gets to call his. I think he gets to call his shot when he gets to go. I think he would have to just completely bomb out before they would actually let him go. Like a 2-10 season or a 1-11 season before they would actually even considering sending him off. But it's just crazy to me to watch Dabo tout that he snaps back at fans, he snaps back at media, talking about his past successes, but he refuses to change with the times. He's barely competent in NIL. He rarely takes care of. He rarely dabbles in the transfer portal, and because of that, his team has a talent drain, and because he has that talent drain, he's not going to be able to compete for national championship anymore. He might have solid to good teams, but he's never going to have that consistently great teams anymore. He may have an occasional good team that might slip into the playoffs occasionally, but he's never going to have that dominant team that he once had. It's just never going to happen. And so then we'll jump into that and we'll go into Penn State. Oh my gosh, Penn State. So Penn State spends, rumored at least between $40 to $50 million in NIL to fill this team, to bring them all back, to try to win a national championship. And what happens? I mean, look at them. They have a losing record now. They're going to be struggling to try to make a bowl game. They end up having to fire their coach, James Franklin, who is a good football coach. And they fired him with a $45 million buyout, guaranteed $45 million. So he gets to sit at home. Now, I know that he talked about on game day just recently that he's going to be looking for another coaching position as early as next season. So I don't know if there's any offsets in his buyout, but the way it looks like, it's gonna be it's just crazy, the fact that he has a $45 million buyout on his contract, and he's not a bad football coach. Is he one of the elite great coaches? No, but I think that firing him was premature. They probably should have kept him through the end of the season, and the fact is, they just you just don't fire somebody with a $45 million buyout. You just don't. Especially when a lot of these teams are crying poverty with the $20.5 million that they're having to pay for their NIL budgets now in their athletic budgets. So now we talked a little bit about this negative stuff. Let's talk about one of the big surprises. It's not so much a surprise, but everyone's thought, well, it only was going to happen once this season, but it ended up happening again. Indiana is now a playoff contender. They're 7-0. Looks like they're getting ready to possibly contend for another national championship. I mean, it's crazy to think that this coach, I want to make sure I don't mispronounce his name, Kirk Cignetti. I mean, he literally said, Google me, I win. And the guy, all he does is win. The guy he literally took his players that he brought over with him and started winning at Indiana, one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, and turned them into instant national championship contender. Now, are they a legitimate national championship contender? I don't know. Their front lines are much more improved this season, but I don't know if they have the depth to handle teams like Georgia and Alabama and the Ohio States and teams like that have the deeper NIL funds that some of these blue bloods have. But it's definitely surprising, at the same time not surprising, in this new world of NIL and transfer portal, that he's able to build this contender. And now he earned himself this new contract extension with another huge buyout. I think it's $88 million guaranteed. So even if he turns around and feels a clunker next year, his contract is guaranteed, so he can go 0-12 next year, and he's going to have a guaranteed send-off. And I mean, it's just incredible, and what he's done at Indiana. And I mean, he's number 3 in the country. He's got one of the best offenses and defenses in the country, and they have a legitimate chance to be a top 4 seed in the playoffs. And it's just incredible to me to think that. The other surprise teams, we got Vanderbilt. They're 6-1 in the SEC. You know, you got Clark Lee. He's turned this team around. 6-1 in the SEC. Vanderbilt is usually one of the laughing stocks in the SEC. They're usually, is almost a guaranteed win, and yet somehow they managed to turn this whole season around. It's incredible. It's just, I mean, it just blows my mind just to think that teams like Indiana and Vanderbilt could be possibly contending for a national title this season, and here we are. They are. I mean, and in this expanded playoff system, we're going to see a lot more of those type of teams. So it's just amazing to me. Some of the other surprise teams, of course, we got Virginia, Georgia Tech, out of the ACC. Both those teams are doing a fantastic job. I don't know if they're legitimate playoff contenders, but they're definitely going to have a pretty nice standing in the bowl season. They're probably going to have their pick in the bowl, or at least the ACC is going to have a nice pick in terms of where they're going to be selected in the bowls when the season comes to an end. And then we have, last but not least, we have Texas and Arch Manning. So we had Arch Manning, who was supposed to be the golden boy, the next great Manning that was supposed to come out of college and light up the college on his way to the NFL, and he's looked pretty average. He has not looked great. He's had that one good game against Oklahoma, and let's just face it wasn't that great of a game. I mean, he played well enough to beat OU, but the rest of the games have been pretty pedestrian, if not terrible. And it looks like he's going to be spending at least another season in Texas, because there's no way that he's going to come out early to be a 5th or 6th round pick. So he's definitely going to be staying for at least another season. Steve Sarkisian, I mean, he's got to be going crazy because he's committed to this kid. He doesn't have a choice but to start him and play him, because, I mean, he's a man, and he's told him that he was going to get this kid developed and turn him into a pro quarterback, and he's not a pro quarterback yet. He's barely a college quarterback. And, I mean, he's not going to... I haven't seen much of an improvement. He's struggled with just basic reads. His footwork is not very great, not very good. And a lot of it has to do, too, with his offensive line play. His offensive line play hasn't been all that great this season. He seems to be spending a lot of his time looking down instead of trying to look up at the coverages and seeing what he needs to make the play, because he's so worried about what's going on in front of him. And he's having to scramble out and trying to make plays to avoid having to get a sack or basically having the pressure up in his face so he can make a throw. So that's part of the problem too. But a lot of it's just he just doesn't look like a pro quarterback. There's a lot of things mechanically wrong with his throw. He doesn't look like he's making the proper reads. He looks like he's making the read prior to the play. So, and I think a lot of that has to do with he's worried about his offensive line and about what he's going to have to do in order to escape the pressure. So I think that's part of it too. So now we're going to go through the long list of college football firings. So at the top of the list, we got Penn State and James Franklin. And he has that, like I said, he has a $45 billion buyout. Then Florida fired Billy Napier just last weekend after beating Mississippi State, barely beating Mississippi State. And what can I say about Billy? I mean, gosh, he'd done so well at Louisiana, and then he came to Florida, and everyone was thinking that he was this Nick Saban disciple, and they thought that he was going to be able to turn the Florida program around. and he can't even field 11 players on the field on a consistent basis. I mean, procedural penalties, things that a Saban coach team would never do on a consistent basis, his team is doing. And I mean, so it's not surprising that he's gone after going 22-23 in less than 4 seasons. So I mean, it's really not surprising that he's gone. Arkansas, Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman. He was a good. He's a hell of an offensive lineman coach, but I don't think he should have never been put in a position to be their head coach. I don't think he was cut out for it. He's never been a coordinator. I just don't think he had the credentials to be it, and it showed season after season. I mean, he got him to peak to a bowl, but at Arkansas, Arkansas fans have this unrealistic notion of competing for national championships on a yearly basis, but realistically, they should be striving to occasionally compete for SEC championship on an occasional. That's what they should be striving for, and then possibly getting into the playoffs on occasion. But strive for national championships is probably something that died when they went to the SEC. But Pittman just wasn't cut out to be the head coach. He just wasn't. Speaking of someone that wasn't cut out, then you had Deshaun Foster at UCLA. And, that was just a case of, UCLA they have their own problems. That I believe they have like $200 million of debt at their athletic department, and so they're having problems just maintaining a competent athletic department just from the debt alone. So they can't even hire a decent coach, and so they were struggling so much after Chip Kelly left to go to Ohio State that they just took the next best thing, which was Deshaun Foster, a position coach who hardly had any coaching experience. Sure, he was a decent NFL player, but he really didn't. It was just like Pittman. He didn't have the credentials to coach, and it showed. And he didn't even make it through a second season before they realized that they had made a mistake and had to let him go. At least they were smart enough to realize that and made the change. And the crazy part is I believe that they're playing better now with their coordinators in charge now than when Foster was in charge. So that's kind of scary if you think about it, how dysfunctional the coaching staff was under his leadership. Then one of the saddest firings I have is Oklahoma State letting go Mike Gundy, who, after 20 plus seasons, winningest football coach in their school history. he suffered the fate that could happen to Dabo eventually, if he doesn't eventually change. He didn't want to adapt to the transfer portal. He didn't want to adapt to NIL. He just didn't want to make those changes. And so because of that, there was a talent drain, and it showed. And after his Big 12 championship appearance a couple seasons ago, suddenly the team just dropped off. And last season went 3-9, and then this season they're even worse, and they lose to Tulsa, and that cost him his job. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for Mike Gundy and for what he did. I mean, he turned Oklahoma State, who at one point was one of the losingest programs in Big 12 history, into a perennial winner. And they won a Big 12 championship underneath him. And got him right on the cusp of into the 14 playoff. And really, he probably should have gotten to play that year. He probably got hosed that season. What was it, 2014? When he got, I believe that's right, 2014. But they got that. But what happened to him was indescribable. I mean, he couldn't change, and because he couldn't change with the times, he lost his career. And maybe he'll bounce back and he'll end up finding somewhere else to coach. But my hope is maybe he'll just stay retired and just accept that being the winningest coach in his school's history. Because if he's not willing to change or adapt, then he just needs to stay. He just needs to stay out of coaching. And then my final firing is Virginia Tech letting go of Brent Pry. I think he was let go after an 0-3 start as well. Again, it's been pretty sad to see what Virginia Tech has come after Frank Beamer retired. That was a perennial winner. Frank Beamer turned that team into, like I said, into one of the more solid teams in the ACC for years, and now, after just two head coaches they're one of the worst. Now they need to find a coach. They need to find a good coach that can turn that team around. But I really hope they do, because, and it could be his son. It could be. But I don't know if he wants to take on that mantle, because that's something that could be pretty harsh. So we'll step off the firings, because that's pretty depressing, isn't it? So, but let's go into the word of the day. Let me get myself adjusted here. But let's talk about these high buyouts that we're seeing. And the crazy part that we're seeing is that we're still seeing these high buyouts. I mean, like I said, I just talked about earlier, we got Kurt Signetti signing this $88 million buyout. Granted, could they possibly lost him to Penn State? Possibly. I mean, but the man's a 63-year-old football coach. And you signed him for, what, a 8 or 10-year deal for $88 million? Guaranteed. It blows my mind to even think about it. And then these athletic departments cry poverty because they're having to pay their athletes for $20.5 million out of their budgets, up to at least $20.5 million. But then they turn around and say they're struggling to pay it, even though somehow they can whip up $88 million to pay football coaches. And then Penn State lets go their football coach for $45 million. I really don't understand it at all. Who are they competing against half the time? Especially like these blue bloods, like Penn State and Ohio State and Michigan and Oklahoma, Texas. I mean, you're not competing against, you're competing against yourself. If anything, I would be doing incentive-laden contracts where I would award them bonuses for achieving certain things, and instead of having these huge buyouts. So, the buyouts can be relatively small. It's like, sure, if you want to go, that's fine. But this is the University of Oklahoma. There's not many jobs like ours. So if you want to leave. You can, you want to pay the $5 million buyout? That's fine. Or if the coach gets fired, you're not having to pay them the ridiculous amount of money that you're paying them if they're not meeting the conditions of their employment. But instead, you have these schools that are just paying out these ridiculous amounts of money. For what? To keep them at a school that they already want to be at? It doesn't make any sense. The thing that they need to be doing is telling these coaches and these agents that if you think you can find a better job than this school, go ahead. Find one. Because there'll be 10 guys that'll be lining up to come coach at this school. And that's the way you gotta look at it. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna keep having these more and more ridiculous. I mean, Texas A&M paid Jimbo Fisher $75 million to go sit on his bum? Who does that? What rational person does that? Like I said, you're only competing against yourself. If you truly are one of the great destinations, you don't have to do that. You can tell a coach that, hey, I'm going to pay you a base salary of this. I'm going to pay you a base salary of $6 million. And if you get me to the college football playoff, I'll give you a $10 million bonus. Or you win me a college football. You can win me a college football national championship. I'll give you a $10 million bonus. You get me in the first round, I'll give you $2 million. But you keep the buyout low. You tell them, I'm only gonna give you $10 million if we fire you at cause. I'm not going to pay you this ridiculous amount of money. Just go sit down for so many years. Have offsets. I mean, Indiana's is fully guaranteed. $88 million fully guaranteed. No offsets. So that means if he takes another coaching job or does something else, there's no offsets. He gets the full $88 million. That doesn't make any sense. Like I said, you're competing against yourself. It makes more sense to tell these coaches that we're not competing against ourselves. This is what we're offering you within reason, and negotiate, saying, look, here's what we're going to do. Here's the structure. And if you want to negotiate within that structure, that's great. And if you don't like it, there's the door. We'll find another coach. So, anyway, that's my word for the day. And that's the end of the episode. And what I'll do is I'll start the NFL episode in a couple days. And I really hope that you guys enjoy what I put out today. And I hope that you come back, and I hope to see you guys again soon. All right.